Hello, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. DLCs, expansions, and remasters can be some of the best examples of continuing an epic story or improving on the original gameplay elements. Who doesn't want more greatness? Sometimes they can be poorly made money grabs trying to capitalize on a popular game, but a lingering question remains that divides the gaming community. Should a DLC, an expansion, or a remaster qualify for a Game of the Year nomination? Well, today we're going to court to argue over just that. But first, some introductions are in order. I am your host, Josh, and joining me, the honorable judge, a man of intense intellect, stunning physicality, and a razor-sharp wit. He's here to preside over these proceedings. It's the esteemed, the honorable, the handsome, the funny, Judge Ryan!
Thank you. Judge Ryan is here. Both of you did not stand when I entered, so to the pit with you!
Oh, dang it. This ain't gonna go good, John.
If you're just listening, by the way, I am in a judge outfit and I have a gavel.
You should absolutely be checking out the video for this episode because it is worthwhile, let me tell you. So, and joining us, my arch nemesis of debates, the diabolical man who sides against me, the one who stands up for the wrong side, the guy who wants to keep fun games out of the running for Game of the Year. It's John.
Your Honor, let the record show that my counterpart opposing counsel here, despite all of this hyperbole and high praise for you, clearly isn't taking this seriously. He's wearing a t-shirt to court today, sir. Only one of us took the time to maybe, take this a little serious. So I want that taken into consideration.
Let the record show court
Objection,
noted.
Your Honor. I can't see the quality of shirt that this man is wearing. It's only a camera from the head up. Oh,
this is an Indochino shirt, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, Your Honor, I am not a rich man. It's hot because it's Arizona
today,
in the summer. Is that a long sleeve shirt, John? Because if so, you are really leaning into this. But
it is. But I'm more of a sleeves up lawyer.
Okay.
So
okay. I was like, man, you really. I know.
I'm in the freaking
Ryan's
wig and the
dying.
robe, man. This thing's hot.
I'm pretty sure Ryan is dying right now. He's like, oh man, he was like, okay, guys, I'm in for this bit, but I think he might be having regrets.
Amazon saves the day again.
Oh, buddy. All right, well, listen, everybody, man, we have an awesome show. Well, this is something that we've been talking about for a while. This kind of came on the tails of our debate that John and I have had in the past, and it's just fun, man. And part of the reason behind this is, listen, gamers, we all have opinions on things, right? And one of the things that we have always said on this show is it is okay to have an opinion about something, and we absolutely need to stop as gamers about insulting people and like getting upset because somebody's opinion may differ from what we think.
Overruled.
All right. So listen, if your opinion is different than mine, then you are a dumb doo-doo head, okay? And you know nothing about gaming at that point.
Let the record show that my opposing counsel just called all of our audience doo-doo heads.
No, objection. That's only if they disagree with me.
Objection, sir.
All right, so listen, but this is the fun of this, right? Is because this is to showcase that, there are different opinions on things out there, and that's okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have fun with these opinions, and we are going to argue over some of these things that divide gamers, and so this is going to be a lot of fun. I am going to argue the case that I think that DLCs and remasters should qualify for Game of the Year. Now, John is going to argue that he thinks that they should not qualify for Game of the Year.
Well, there's no argument here. They don't. They shouldn't.
Well,
yeah.
There is going to be an argument because they do. So,
yeah. Okay.
Now, I will say this is that when we decided to do this, we really couldn't figure out who wanted to pick which side on this. But again, we can argue anything. So, social media, when you see a 60-second clip of this episode, don't rip us apart. This is all for fun, man. But also let the games
Oh, I'm
begin,
sure they'll
John.
pay attention to that, Josh.
All right, and so just to lay the groundwork here, I am going to argue my case. John is going to argue his case. Ryan, the honorable, esteemed Judge Ryan, will be the one to decide who argued their case the best. No bias involved. Surely Ryan doesn't have any thoughts on this debate whatsoever.
Completely neutral, I promise.
And we have some plans for future episodes on this for potentially the losers of who loses the debate. I'll just tease that a little bit right now. So, all right. So let's do this. I mean, let me just set the stage a little bit. This comes from some recent, like Resident Evil 4. The remaster for Resident Evil 4 was up for a nomination for Game of the Year. Okay. And a whole bunch of gamers went, dude, as fantastic as the Resident Evil 4 remake was, that game already existed. It shouldn't qualify. Last year, we had Shadow of the Erdtree that was nominated. Fantastic DLC. Elden Ring. I mean, Shadow of the Erdtree was phenomenal, but there were a lot of people that said, hey, listen, we've got a lot of good games in 2024. Shadow of the Erdtree should not be in the Game of the Year category. It is simply an expansion / DLC. This should not qualify. And so this is kind of where this debate stems from. And I'm sure that everybody listening right now has a thought on this. So, John, do you want to start us off? Or would you like me to go first?
Typically, the plaintiff party goes first.
Am I the plaintiff?
Well, I would say that I'm maybe the defendant, but I'm happy to go first.
No,
Your Honor, may I approach the bench?
You may, counsel.
Whoa.
Your Honor, my counterpart is clearly not prepared for this argument. I vote that this goes to mistrial and that the court finds in favor immediately that DLC and remasters should not be qualified for major game awards, especially Game of the Year.
Request denied. Sit down, counsel.
Yeah!
Don't make a mockery of my court again.
Also, I hope you break your ankle on the way back to your seat. So, all right. So let me just start off here by kind of, I guess I want to like give an opening statement as to why I think that, DLCs and expansions and remasters should qualify for Game of the Year. I think I kind of need to set the stage for people on this and the Honorable Judge Ryan in this case. Okay. So, as gamers, what do we want? We want fun, entertaining games to play, man. How do we want them? We want them cheap. We want them worth the money that we're going to spend. This is hard-earned money that we spend, and we have all been victims to games that were poorly developed, not ready for release, or otherwise just steaming piles of garbage. And then we go, man, I spent good money on this, and now I'm upset. So when we as gamers are given a game that blows us away, it should not matter that it is tied to an IP that already exists. If you give me content that is 20 hours worth of banger content, I don't care what game it might be tied to at that point. If it stands out amongst all the other games that year, then it should qualify for Game of the Year. I have a bunch of examples, well, 3 really off the top of my head that I can give to kind of defend this stance. But I think those stand on their own to show why sometimes this content, these DLCs and expansions, should absolutely qualify for Game of the Year if they are better than everything else that might be qualified as well.
Well, let's hold our horses here for a second. I want to go on the record by saying that I am not at all opposed to the concept of remasters, remakes, heavy DLC. I love that we review a medium that can be constantly upgraded and revised and improved. And there's several media examples that I could point to. All Quiet on the Western Front had a remake a few years ago. It's a remake of an older movie. It is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. But ultimately, it is not original content. Leftovers do not qualify for Michelin stars. And that's what we're talking about here, guys. We are talking about games that have already been released, that have already had the chance to be reviewed and qualify for awards. And I do not think that it is fair for them to muddy the landscape here. Absolutely.
So let me ask you a question, John. If a game is great, if it stands out amongst all the other games for the year, shouldn't it be in the running for a Game of the Year nomination?
There are already awards for these categories, like Best Ongoing Game. That is where those belong.
Yeah, I get that there's categories for just about everything, but we're talking specifically whether it qualifies for a Game of the Year nomination. We can't, at that point, we're just throwing out this whole case because it's like, well, we'll just invent a category. Yes, there's a category that exists for best DLC or best additional content or something like that. Just like there's a category for best streamer of the year, but we don't care about those. What we care about is Game of the Year. Does it stand out as the best of the best that came out in that year? Let me just give you an example of one so that we can set the stage here, guys. Most recently, I mentioned it in the intro, Shadow of the Erdtree. Elden Ring, one of the most beloved, incredible games that gaming has ever seen. Whether it's your style of game or not is not relevant. If it is a fantastic game, it is a game of all time. And I think most people can accept that. Shadow of the Erdtree, they came out, they said, hey, we're making an expansion for this game. It is going to provide dozens of hours of new content. It is going to give you, all sorts of new experiences, new boss fights, new weapons. It was 20 hours long. It was absolutely incredible. It improved on the formula in many, many ways. Shadow of the Erdtree was better as an individual entity than most of the games that came out in 2024. It absolutely stood out on its own merit, not tied to Elden Ring. If you called it, hey guys, this is XYZ game, it was still one of the best games of the year. Why does it have to suffer because it has Elden Ring in its name?
Well, let me ask you two qualifying questions here. Can you play Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree without the base game?
You cannot. And that is the definition of a DLC.
Okay. So here's one of the main reasons why I think DLC should not qualify is that when you allow these things, ultimately what you're recognizing when you're recognizing Game of the Year is you're recognizing the team that put it together. Like the game doesn't exist without the team that put it together. And when you have DLC that is built on top of the framework of a original game, it muddies the waters as far as who you are actually recognizing for that award. Is it the original creators, the remake team, both, neither? You're muddying the waters there, and it is not an original self-contained representation of the game. It is additional content. It is bonus content.
It shouldn't suffer
and it's
because
awesome.
of that. Yeah, I mean, it is awesome, but here's the thing. Would you rather have a game like Shadow of the Erdtree? I'm going to name another one, Phantom Liberty. Quite possibly one of the best DLCs that has ever existed in our lifetime. Phantom Liberty, the first expansion / DLC for Cyberpunk, was absolutely phenomenal. Okay, in your scenario, you want to take a game that sucks. Okay, a game that just is garbage. We'll say Forspoken. Okay. I'm just trying to think of a game that I hate recently. Elite Dangerous, for instance. Okay,
Those games will not be mentioned in my court.
Okay, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I apologize for bringing up terrible memories. But you want to say that this absolutely phenomenal game does not qualify simply based on the fact that it's tied to another game? In which case,
yes,
you are then opening the door for absolute trash games to be nominated at that point. Shouldn't it stand on the merit of its own game? Like if it's the best of the best, then that's what qualifies.
I am not at all saying that developers should not improve their games post-release. I think that anything you can do to save a turd from being a turd, you should do. And I'm using the word turd in the legal sense here. But here is
objection, Your Honor. I would like a definition of legal turd.
Here's my best and most relevant counterexample to that. Okay, so Return of the King, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King won many awards the year that it was eligible for the Academy Award, and it did in fact win Best Picture that year. When it was released to home video, it was released with additional content, like an additional hour, the extended version, which is superior in every way. It is fantastic. The extended trilogy in general is fantastic. Cinematically, it is the best thing that's ever been put to celluloid. But does the fact that they added an hour of content now make that movie eligible again for Game of the Year or Movie of the Year again? No, it had its opportunity. I think when you open the doors for game developers to make their game basically evergreen eligible for Game of the Year just by, increasing whatever DLC or upgrade they provide to the game, it de-incentivizes innovation. It de-incentivizes quality at release. And I think that those are important things that the game industry needs to focus on. If your game sucks at launch, don't launch it.
Yeah,
Keep the game out.
I can't disagree with you there. Listen, this is not a debate on whether remasters are good for the gaming industry. And honestly, we have our stance that we have seen, unfortunately, we have seen a lot of very low effort remasters come about in the gaming industry. And we call them for what they are. They are money grabs. Warcraft 3 Reforged is one of the most egregious examples of lazy remastering for a money grab that we have seen quite possibly ever. And shame on Blizzard for doing that. And unfortunately, they are preying on the fact that gamers have nostalgia for some of these games, and they're willing to pay up for the chance that that game was improved in some way. So whether we agree with remasters being relevant in the gaming industry is a moot point. What we're talking about is standing on the merits of the game itself. And in an example like Shadow of the Erdtree, in an example like Phantom Liberty, these games are absolute phenomenal examples of what gaming should be. We talked about The Witcher 3 recently. The Witcher 3 had two of the best expansions that have existed in gaming, Blood and Wine and Heart of Stone. Anybody that's played those understands they are equivalent to the original game.
Your Honor, objection, irrelevant. Well, we are not debating whether or not there is merit in the quality of DLC. We are debating whether or not DLC qualifies as a standalone individual game worthy of being nominated for an award that is intended to reward a new release game.
The quality of a game absolutely should come into play when you are talking about Game of the Year. It is absolutely about the quality, because otherwise, crappy games are not going to get nominated.
The court has a question. Josh.
Yes.
You mentioned time, how long a game could be as a DLC. Do you have a threshold onto where it may be absolutely amazing, but is 10 hours or below not in that qualification? Do you have a timeline?
Your Honor, I do think that time is tied to price. If you're giving me 10 hours of content for $10 at that point, and this is some of the most banger content that gamers have seen, then I think it should qualify. I do think that in all honesty, if it's a DLC or an expansion, there should be a threshold to say, hey, this stands on its own. It's tough. But then to your point, how many games are a short experience, like 5 hours, but are super memorable? Firewatch is a good example of that. A game doesn't have to be long to be good. In fact, we have seen the opposite, where games have been too long and we've been flooded with too much content at that point.
Your Honor, the very fact that we have to interpret this, the very fact that this is subjective, makes it irrelevant to the case. The fact that we have to now redefine how much time that DLC adds to the experience basically highlights my point, is that we are not talking about an original game here. That is open to interpretation. The thing that is not open to interpretation is this a new game or is this not a new game? And if the answer is no, then it should not qualify. There are categories that exist for those types of games. Game of the Year is not one of them.
Objection, Your Honor. We're not talking about other categories. We are talking about specifically Game of the Year.
Y'all have used 2 of your 3 objections. Keep it up.
I didn't realize there was a limit here. I will go back to my point that a game should be based on the merits of the game itself. If I make a crappy expansion, if I make DLC that is a money grab, that is just another example that I'll give to the court, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands was sold as a standalone game tied to the Borderlands universe. Anybody that played it fully understood that this was just a rehash of the assets that was sold to people that love the franchise to try to make money off of them. It was lazy, and it didn't qualify for Game of the Year. A game like Phantom Liberty, like Shadow of the Erdtree, these games stand out amongst all other games those years because of the merit of the game itself. If another company cannot make a game that is on par with Shadow of the Erdtree, that's that company's fault. We should not reward mediocrity because people can't achieve a certain thing. In that case, I would like to remind everybody, when Baldur's Gate 3 released and took over the gaming world, how many studios came out and said, gamers, you should not expect this level of quality from a game studio. Yes, we should. We should absolutely expect that from a game studio. Why is it any different now?
I understand my opposing counsel's point here, but I want to state that he is again making my point that by incentivizing studios to just revise their existing game over and over and over again is exactly how you end up with Ubisoft Assassin's Creed's. It's exactly how you end up with Tiny Tina's Wonderland, is that you go, oh, wow, this is a safe product. Let's just keep adding garbage onto this garbage, and people keep eating it up because, hey, the original one worked. Let's add a little more to it. Why not? Let's have Borderlands 2 part 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 until people get sick of it. It kills innovation. It absolutely de-incentivizes indie studios from doing anything. And it, again, just categorically, it dilutes the industry.
Counsel,
a new game is a new game, and a non-new game is a non-new game, period.
Counsel, let me ask you a question. Do you think sequels should qualify for Game of the Year? Should Borderlands 3 qualify, or let's say Far Cry 5, should that qualify for Game of the Year?
Yes.
So your only stipulation is that a game should not need another game to be installed in order to be played. So you don't care about the quality of the game. Your only stipulation is that the game is able to be launched without any other criteria tied to any other game.
Your Honor, this is all speculative. I am not
Answer the question, counsel.
I am not saying that I like this. What I'm saying is that the video game law exists to tell us right from wrong, black from white. And a new game is a new game, an existing game is not. Otherwise, we end up with this pool of gray and a game like Red Dead 2. It's the best game ever made by many people's account. Why doesn't that win Game of the Year every year?
It's a sequel, though. It's a sequel. It shouldn't count. It was tied to a different game.
It is a sequel with its own story that was built with its own dev team, and it should be celebrated as such. If people want to add on to that game, awesome. I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. If we want to extend people's experience on the original game, it should absolutely happen. It's a free market. Game companies should be able to do whatever we want. But it's not a new game.
Judge, the court has a question again. What is the current law on the books regarding this matter?
Current law is to be eligible for a Game of the Year award, Shadow of the Erdtree should have been Elden Ring 2.
Well, it was the law on the books is that it does qualify because, Your Honor, Shadow of the Erdtree was nominated for a Game of the Year for 2014.
I object.
As was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is a remake of an original game. So we have two examples that prove that this was already allowed in the gaming industry. And I would like to go back to the point that my opposing counsel made with Red Dead Redemption. A sequel, by your own logic, then, a sequel should be disqualified from nomination for Game of the Year because it is already tied to an existing IP. It had the same characters in it. It took place in the same world. All it did was have new story and told a story from a different viewpoint. Guess what Phantom Liberty does for Cyberpunk 2077? It tells a different viewpoint. It has different characters. It takes place in the same world, but it's a new story with new characters, new gameplay. In all rights, it's equal to Red Dead Redemption 2.
Your Honor,
the one caveat that you cannot launch Phantom Liberty if you do not have Cyberpunk 2077 installed.
Your Honor, I object. The counsel
damaging to my case, Your Honor.
The counsel is leading the jury here. He again is making my point. The fact that you have to have the original game in order to play this supporting content, which is great. I'm not debating that. It's great content. I love that they're extending people's experiences, but it is not an independent experience. Once the credits roll and you are aware of whoever was on this development team, story building team, the infrastructure that went into the game, that seals that project for me. You can add on to it. You can absolutely add on to it, but it is no longer an independent project. Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2 were two different dev teams, at least in part, and were acknowledged as such in the credits and should be acknowledged as individual entries for categories like Game of the Year. I disagree, and I think it is a failure of this court, Your Honor. I think it is a failure of this court that Final Fantasy, my beloved Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, was nominated. I think it is a failure of this court that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree was nominated. Those are failures of this court, failure of the law, and I intend to stop it.
I like fun as a gamer. I like quality games. I want to support games that are made with love and work and provide dozens of hours of supreme content. This has nothing to do with the development teams.
I love leftover pizza. That doesn't qualify it.
Don't interrupt again, or you'll be held in contempt of court, sir.
Yes, yeah. Eat it, John. Your
and
leftover
you
pizza.
burned up all your objections.
Yeah. I would like to posit that we make closing statements so that we can allow the judge to make his ruling.
Let's wrap this up,
this.
and then we could do recess.
Yeah, because the judge is starting to get really sweaty as well. Okay.
Bailiff, please turn the air down.
Yeah, I'm going to
There's a good look for you, Ryan.
I'm going to go back to the one point that I would like to remind all gamers about. Okay, for those that side with John on this, we want good quality games. The fact that the only caveat that people take issue with is that you have to have a game installed in order to launch another game is the hang up with these people. Okay. If Red Dead Redemption 2, one of the greatest games to ever grace gaming, predicated that you had Red Dead installed, and that's it. That's the only thing. We would have been denied the greatness of Red Dead 2 because they needed to tie it to Red Dead 1 to launch it. That is not a disqualifier for a game being phenomenal. It is not a disqualifier for a game being great and should be recognized as being great, which is what the purpose of Game of the Year is. It is to highlight the very best of the best games that release in a given year. If Shadow of the Erdtree or Phantom Liberty is one of the best gaming experiences to come out that year, it should absolutely be rewarded for what it is. It should be acknowledged for what it is, and it should qualify. If it can stand on its own merits against every other game that released that year and win, it should be allowed to win on those merits. I rest my case, Your Honor.
Very well said.
Your Honor, I would like to thank the jury and your prestigious self for their time. I would even like to thank my counter counsel here for his, we'll say, diluted opinion. I would like to first acknowledge what he said as far as Red Dead 2 being reliant on Red Dead 1. If that were the case, we wouldn't have been denied the greatness of Red Dead 2. We would have still been able to experience the greatness of Red Dead 2. But I am saying categorically, if it relied on the infrastructure of Part 1, it would not qualify as an independent gaming experience, nor should it qualify for Game of the Year. When you split this, when you release DLC, remaster, etc., it becomes unclear whether the award is honoring the original creators or the remake team or both. That, I think, is a clear dividing line of whether or not something should be eligible. Not to mention the fact that the DLCs aren't full experiences on their own if they need the original game to work. They reuse existing mechanics, assets, stories. They typically skip stages of pre-production that are essential for calling something a standalone experience. And I guess most importantly, just from a human standpoint as a gamer, is that this practice, if you're acknowledging it, as a game of the year, as a standalone experience, de-incentivizes innovation in gaming. You end up squashing potential frontrunners, potential game changers like Expedition 33, Little Nightmares, The Alters, wonderful indie experiences that must be innovative to compete with the much larger organizations out there. And despite the categorical arguments that I've made here, Your Honor, being that it needs to be a standalone experience, I would ask that the audience, the jury, and our peers consider the human element here, that we should be celebrating innovation. Game of the Year categorically celebrates that honor, and I rest my case.
Oh, excuse me there, Councilman.
Watch out for that microphone, Your Honor.
This
it almost got
gets in
you.
the way a little bit there. Now, I must say, you both have made very compelling arguments today. And I also appreciate you coming out here to argue your side. Well, passionately, also sometimes quite stupidly. But I got the gist of what you both have said.
Stupidly.
My ruling, well, I'm a passionate man. I also am a fair man. And I will rule with no bias and no prior decisions made. Based on this case, if DLCs should be in the Game of the Year nominations, I, Judge Ryan Crouch, rule in favor of no. John, you are the winner.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 chicken dinner.
Let's go.
What?
USA. USA.
Mistrial.
You made some good statements within your argument, but I will say, I hope for dear life that you please seek some help. You do not know what a game is. You do not know what a private entity is. You do not know.
Impartial ruling? Even John agreed with me. I could see it in his face when he was arguing. He was like, dang it, that's the best point I've ever heard.
Some really good points.
If a game can't be played without prior stuff, it is not. A DSC does not consider itself its own entity. Therefore, I rule in favor of John. Josh, I wish you all the best, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I cannot stand it. I thought this was going to be impartial. Ryan had his mind made up before we even started this episode.
My mind was made up, but I held no bias.
Yeah, right. You just threw it out there. You're like, a game shouldn't qualify. You
Your
already
Honor,
knew what you thought on this.
Can we hold this man in contempt of court here?
Sir,
I hold
you
you in contempt of court.
I hold myself in contempt of court. Why should you be any different?
I can't believe this. I made such good arguments. You know what? The people.
You did make good arguments,
The
Josh.
people will decide.
I was going back and forth. You guys were swaying back and forth. But
I don't believe that for a second.
The people, speaking of the people, we the people, we want to know what you think about this. Are DLCs, should they be eligible for Game of the Year?
There will be a poll.
The ruling has been
There will be a poll in Spotify. We would love to hear what you guys think.
Come and let us know.
All right. Well, you know what? This episode's over. I may not be the judge, but I'm the host, and I can end this show anytime I want. And that time is now. Also, thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun. We love arguing. Let us know what you think. And I guess we're going to do this again with maybe a new judge or something, somebody that's not so biased and made his mind up before the episode even started. Man, I thought for sure I was winning this, man.
You guys,
right.
it was back. It was close. It was
good.
close.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking into this more. I want to see your bank statements, Ryan. All right, everybody.
If you want to look at the front, here is my Cash App on the front of the.
All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much. Listen, it is a good reminder. It's okay to have an opinion on something. It is okay for people to have different opinions. It is not a slight against you as a person. It is good. We can actually learn things from this. I got to give John credit. He made some really good points. I am adamant that I think that it should qualify because, again, the points I made are honestly what I think in this case. But, you know, just hearing John's side of things, it makes sense. And it helps me realize why some people don't like this, you know. A corrupt judge aside, this is why we love talking about these things. So thank you for joining us. I will be filing a complaint with whoever you complain about judges to. Until next time, everybody, happy gaming.
Peace out.
Representatives of the jury, toodaloo.